Israeli's Prime Minister's office is holding a news conference as we speak. There's going to be a cabinet meeting at around 3 o'clock our time, 5 o'clock in Israel, and that presumably when that deal is ratified, the ceasefire will formally begin, according to the Israeli government. I'm joined by Eylon Levy, former spokesperson for the Israeli government. He's in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, Sheila. A very good afternoon at long last to you.
Is there a sense of celebration there? I know that it will probably be tempered by ongoing fears, I'm sure, but is there a sense of celebration?
This is really the day that Israelis have been hoping for 2 years, but many feared would not come. Hostage Square in Tel Aviv is just the plaza in front of an art museum, but for 2 years it has been a scene of protests, of anger, of longing. And I have not seen people this happy in 2 years since before the war began. Everyone knows things can still go wrong. We know exactly the enemy we are dealing with, but a palpable optimism that in just a few days, those poor hostages might finally be reunited with their family.
And is it your sense, since Donald Trump said to a group of ex-hostages and relatives, they're coming out Monday, is it your sense that is very much the timetabling of this?
That is the timeline that Israel is thinking in terms of. Hospitals have already begun to get ready to receive the hostages. They will be ready to accept them as soon as Hamas can let them out. And President Trump has indeed said by Monday. And the hope is all the live ones will come out on Monday, and the dead bodies by Monday. And the dead bodies, the bodies of the hostages who have already been murdered in captivity, will also come out as soon as possible.
Is it clear that all of those dead hostages can be found?
I think Hamas is likely to claim that it can't find some of the hostages. Hamas's interest is to try to hold on to some secret bargaining chip somewhere to use as leverage over Israel in the next war. Let's remember why Hamas took hostages in the first place, to hold them as leverage to try to survive the war that it started with its missiles, with its tunnels, ready to do the next October 7th massacre. So I think we can definitely expect Hamas to claim that it cannot find some of the hostages. Of course, I don't trust a terrorist organization like Hamas.
There's already been, this is my reading of things, there's already been 2 hints at, everybody's clearly, myself included, delighted to hear of the impending release of the hostages. But I've already heard this morning 2 hints at what Benjamin Netanyahu and maybe the wider government might be about to face within Israel. First of all, one of his ministers, Mr. Smotrich, saying he won't accept the deal. Again, no indication he's going to rattle the cage yet in a dangerous way for the government to survive. But the father of Nimrod Cohen, one of the hostages due to be released, Yehudi Cohen, was on British radio this morning speaking more against Benjamin Netanyahu than about the release of his son. I mean, he's clearly delighted about the release of his son, but he is angry still, and he won't be the only one, at what he believes was a government that left Nimrod and everybody else on that day defenceless for too long. It allowed Hamas to be too successful. He's got a bit of a reckoning coming, hasn't he, Benjamin Netanyahu, on that front?
After this war, there must certainly be a state commission of inquiry to work out how on earth October 7th happened. How were we caught by surprise? How is it possible that a terrorist army was able to build up on our borders, cross, invade, butcher people in their homes, take them back? What went wrong on that day? What went wrong in previous years in terms of the strategy vis-a-vis Hamas? And of course, Israel will have elections by November next year, and the Prime Minister will have to submit himself again at the ballot box to the public.
When is that due? Next November, is that right?
Elections must take place by next November.
By next November.
That's the deadline.
This deal is very similar in nature, isn't it, to one that President Biden, when he was in office, presented. What do you think the key difference here? Is it just the relationship the two presidents, he and Trump, have with Benjamin Netanyahu, or is it more than that?
This deal is actually nothing like the previous deals that were proposed. The previous deals suggested phasing the release of the hostages and allowing Hamas to keep the bodies as bargaining chips for reconstruction, that they would only give back the dead bodies while they were able to get concrete back into their tunnels under Gaza. President Trump here said no. All the hostages have to come out immediately, in one go, not in phases, not in dribs and drabs, in one go now. And then the next stage will be the negotiations on how we end the war for good based on the Trump plan. But it's very different from previous proposals that basically let Hamas keep hostages as bargaining chips to get better terms to end the war.
And do you believe that, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves in a sense because the release of the hostages, the more smooth delivery of aid in Gaza in particular needs to happen. But do you believe beyond that, this international stabilisation force can achieve what is designed in that 20-point plan? Because that's a complex picture, isn't it?
Historically, peacekeeping forces in the Middle East have been absolute catastrophes. There was a peacekeeping force in the Sinai between Israel and Egypt, and they packed up and left when Egypt asked before the Six-Day War. And of course, UNIFIL in Lebanon, which was supposed to oversee Hezbollah's disarmament. And Iran's terrorist proxy army in Lebanon built an arsenal of 150,000 rockets right under their noses. So it is important that whatever international force enter Gaza have a genuine mandate, not just to walk around and write reports, but to disarm Hamas, to block off those tunnels, to take its missiles off. Israel, of course, would prefer not to have its own soldiers doing that hard work of disarming Hamas. And here is a mechanism to give diplomacy a chance, but it needs to have teeth. The real test of this deal is going to be the enforcement and making sure that Hamas cannot wriggle out of it to keep its terrorist army intact.
I've had a couple of callers already this hour saying a couple of things. I'll meld the 2 points. That once the hostages are released, maybe even once that force is in place, it's time for international journalists to be allowed in. It's time for this story to be told in a fuller way. Do you accept that?
I think the main argument for keeping international journalists out of Gaza has been fear for their safety in areas where Hamas would use them as human shields or try to fight behind them.
That's always been the choice of conflict reporters, though, but, you know.
Well, I think Israel would rather not see conflict reporters being killed in Gaza. But I can definitely a scenario that when the fighting stops and Hamas is removed from power and is stripped of its weapons, we're in a totally different reality. The restrictions of the war will not necessarily apply.